It is such a pleasure to be here. This is my second time in Puerto Rico. I'd like to introduce my co-founder for YIFTI, Aldo Briano, who got married in August and provided my first excuse to come to Puerto Rico. I'm going to share something with you that I created out of my experience working at a number of different startups. So depending on how you count them, YIFTI is my third or my 19th startup. I spent about 9 years in venture capital where I worked in 16 different companies, helping them develop their go-to-market strategies, and made a lot of mistakes in doing that. So I like to share those mistakes with you so you can make your own new mistakes and not the same old ones that I make. But it was really interesting listening to Carlos this morning. I've had the privilege to teach marketing to engineers at Stanford, which is how I met Aldo. And then I started teaching entrepreneurs from all over the world who come to Stanford to learn how we do things in Silicon Valley. So I've shared this material with people from France, Finland, Brazil, Chile, China, India, Vietnam, Singapore, you name it. I get a chance to interact with people from all over the world and share this information. I get to learn something every time from them. And now I get to add the beautiful Puerto Rico to that list. And it's, again, really, really exciting to be here. So I was listening to Carlos speak this morning, and it sounds a little bit like this. Blah, 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 blah. Fail fast. Blah, 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 blah. Entrepreneurship. Blah, 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 blah. Pay it forward. Quit talking and start working. Roller coaster, my personal favorite. So, because I don't understand all the Spanish in between, and I apologize for that. But what occurred to me as I was listening to Carlos talk and hearing all those words is there's a really common language of entrepreneurship, and we all kind of speak that language, and we all have some of the same trials and tribulations to start from nothing but a vision and turn it into something that changes the world. And so my mission today in being here is to share what I've learned in almost 30 years of entrepreneurship with you and help you on your missions, whatever they be, to change the world. So, like I said, we're going to start off with lessons in how to build markets while creating products. Because what I found when I was working with the 19 different startups that I've worked with is that entrepreneurs often know how to build products, but they don't necessarily know how to build the markets. And I've had a chance to meet with a number of you today in the workshops out there and hear some of your ideas. And I've met people from universities, from nonprofits, from tech companies, from retail companies, pretty much a little of everything. And I hope that all of you will find something in this presentation that's useful to you, that you can leave this room tonight and go out and implement in your startups and in your entrepreneurial activities. So it's meant to be really practical and really something that you can use. So without further ado, let's jump into it. This is a bottom line. The bottom line is that you need to develop your product and your market simultaneously. It's an iterative process. It's not like you develop the product and then you put it out there and the market just happens. That has to be done together, which kind of seems obvious, but to help you remember it, we say it takes two to tango. So how many of you are on this stage, though? You have no customers, you have no product, you maybe have no money, your customers may not even know that they have a problem, and really only your mother kind of knows who you are and what you're doing. So who's in that stage? Okay. Has anyone seen this movie, or does anyone remember this movie, or maybe you watch oldies? What do they say in this movie? Right. If you build it, they will come. Well, I'm here to tell you that only works in Hollywood. Okay, so we're going to tell you how to build the market to make sure that they come, and don't just leave it up to chance. So you got to take what you have to get what you need. And don't underestimate what you have, even if you don't have any product yet. So what you do have is a team of superstars. You have yourself and everything you've done this far in your life, your contacts, your knowledge, your expertise, your experience, and that of your co-founders, your passion, right? So that means a lot. And that, the fact that you're sitting here today, you all have that. You also have a game-changing product that's coming to life. So you probably have PowerPoint slides, you have prototypes, you have demos, you have all kinds of different tools that you're developing and learning, and they're helping you along the way. And last but not least, you have a compelling vision. So never underestimate the power of your vision, because honestly, you guys, what your first customers are buying is not the product, it's you and your vision. So here's a question for you. This is kind of a bit of a trick question. What do customers care about? Who's got some ideas? You guys are good participants. They care about their problems, right? Anything else? They care about the price. What else? They care about service. What else?
Is it pretty?
They care about how it looks. Is it pretty? They care about their lifestyle. Yes, they do. They care about potential liabilities, like are you going to go belly up and leave them standing high and dry? What else? Ease of use, right? Okay, so I'll just give you a little catchphrase. So what all this rolls up to is what customers really care about is themselves, right? So, and that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. So if you realize, as an entrepreneur, when you're trying to breathe life into your very first products, that what customers care about is themselves, it gives you a whole new set of tools that you can play with to bring your products and your company to market. So given that you are now putting yourselves, come with me on this journey to bring life, breathe life into your very first products, this is what you have to demonstrate to those first customers. You have to demonstrate that you comprehend their problem. So that doesn't mean you getting up and standing there and talking about your product. That means listening, right? That means demonstrating to them that you comprehend what they're saying, what their opportunities are, what their problems are, that you're one of them, right? Second, you have to demonstrate that you have a competency, that you're capable of addressing that problem and relieving that pain or delivering on that opportunity. And third, you have to demonstrate that you care. And I'm telling you, that's probably the most important one of these three things. Because these first customers are coming with you on an uncharted journey. And they have to trust that you care about them and that you're going to deliver what you say you're going to deliver. Whether you're a for-profit company, a non-profit company, it's not about the money. It's about caring about your customers. So I call these the 3 C's: comprehend, competent, and that you care. If you can demonstrate that to your potential customers, you can get some first customers, get the ball rolling, and start building a successful company. So how do you do that when you have potentially no budget, people don't know they have this pain? So you got to leverage what you have to get what you need, right? And what you need are paying customers. So don't let anyone fool you that what you need is VC, or what you need is a few more engineers, or what you need is a nice office space. What you need are customers. Eventually, customers who pay money, okay? So you're going to market the company, not the product. So what you're going to start out doing is you have a hypothesis about what the world needs. So go out and validate that hypothesis and figure out to what market segment should you be offering your products when they do come to market. So you got to explore, right? So one of the companies that I worked in when I was in VC was an email server company. And we didn't know whether the target market should be Fortune 500 companies or consultants with 10 people in the shop. But the problem we were solving is email was getting out of control. They couldn't store all the email on the servers. They had all kinds of restrictions, so we built an email server that was much more cost-effective for them. But we didn't know where was the sweet spot in the market going to be. So we pretty much went out and talked to everyone from Fortune 500 companies down to 10-person consulting shops. And through those conversations, you figure out where's the pain, where's the budget, where can we focus. And in those conversations, it's not about us selling something to them, it's about listening and understanding who they are and what they need. And when you do that, you market what I refer to as a player. And I'm guessing that many of you, probably most of you in this room, are players. And a player is someone who the customer believes comprehends their problem, is competent to solve it, and cares. Okay? So that's what you're marketing, is that person. Okay? Once you do that and you figure out this is where we're going to start, this is our sweet spot in the market, you need to make a bet on that. You need to build the relationships carefully with those customers. You need to bet wisely and lock them in. So make sure that those first customers that you strategically choose are going to be great customers for you and are going to lead you to a big market in the long run. So that sounds kind of easy, right? But it gets done wrong all the time. So I like to illustrate this for the visual learners out there with a picture. And this green bubbles here is a very oversimplified view of product development cycle. So you start out with some idea on a whiteboard. It goes to alpha testing. You progress to debugging it in beta. You progress to a production-ready product. Product goes live. Eventually, you have a global rollout. A vastly simplified product development process. And what often has been forgotten, although less so now than 10 years ago, is corresponding to that is the market development process or the customer development process. So while you are having your whiteboard discussions, alpha product, you should be out talking to customers and having those exploratory meetings and figuring out where's our sweet spot going to be and strategically choosing where you're going to start. So it's not just so-and-so is doing me a favor by testing my products. It's, no, this is where we want to be. And you as the entrepreneur have to control that and be very thoughtful about that as opposed to letting it happen to you, okay? So once you decide this is where we want to be, this is who we want to sell to, you move into the product feedback and building credibility stage. So you choose your early customers wisely. You say these 3 or 5 or 500 customers or particular customers. We're going to get a lot of product feedback, but what often gets forgotten is you're also building credibility with those customers. So there's 2 things you need to accomplish in that stage, which is getting the product feedback and building credibility in the market so that you can grow from those initial customers. The next thing you need to do is get them to pay. So you got to set expectations in the early days that these customers that are helping you out, that are giving you feedback, that are helping you build credibility are actually going to pay money for this. Because if they're not paying money, it's not a good reference for you. How credible is someone that didn't pay for it? So you need to, and you also need to make sure that you understand how buying decisions are made. So we have paying customers. Beyond that, those paying customers need to be referenceable. Because not until you have reference customers and one customer talking to the next customer talking to the next customer do you have a market, right? So that's the process that you're going through on the same time. So all of you guys who are hackers out there, make sure that you have your counterpart hustlers and hipsters to be doing the other side of the development. So that all sounds really obvious and easy and motherhood and apple pie. So I wanted to now share things that I've done wrong or seen done wrong so that we don't have to make those same mistakes again. So starting with number 5 here, let's talk for a minute about, and this came up in some of my conferences out earlier this morning, talk about some of the pros and cons of selling consulting projects, because my guess is a number of you are in consulting businesses and you're trying to figure out how do we become a product business and get some leverage and some scalability out of this. Is that right? So So what are some advantages of being in a consulting business? Sorry, I didn't. One more time? You know your clients well. Thank you. And they can hear you. What else? Less risk. Yeah, because probably shorter time to money, right? What else? Yes? The confidence of the client. So there's more trust, right? You have that, you've built that relationship. You really can show that you comprehend their problem. You're competent to solve it. Yeah? No inventory or marketing costs. Maybe a little bit of marketing costs for lunches now and then. But yeah, not a big outlay of expense kind of. Right, right, okay. What else? Learn from your customers.
You can pick your customers.
You can choose your customers, right? Okay, so there's a lot of good things about consulting. No one said my favorite, which is it pays the bills, right? What about the downside? So some of you have been in consulting businesses. What maybe didn't you expect, or what went wrong with that? It's not your agenda, right? You have to do what that client needs, and that client's needs may or may not be the mainstream needs that you need to build a company, right? Okay, so that's the biggest one. What else?
Linear growth.
Linear growth. It doesn't scale. So how many bodies can you throw at it because you're charging probably by the hour, right? What else? Other downsides with consulting? Cash flow, meaning could be you're the last one to get paid. Okay, so yeah, one of the I worked with a company before they got venture funding, and they had this idea of something they were going to build, and it was a training tool, and they got an opportunity for $1 million consulting project with a big oil company. And they took the opportunity with the big oil company to end up, diverting all the resources of the company to address that $1 million contract, and no work got done on the long-term project and the vision of the company. And so when that $1 million project was done, there was basically nothing left of the company. So that's kind of scary. That's the downside. So somehow you have to find a way to balance your vision for your scalable, repeatable product sale with, a little bit of revenue coming in the door to keep the lights on. It's very, very difficult to do. So just cautioning you on that. Another story, ramping sales before the product is ready. I'll tell you what happened in a company called Senzik that I was working in. So I was working for this VC, and they said, all right, Senzik, here's $3 million, and Donna for 6 months, she'll help you figure out your go-to-market strategy. So I go over to Senzik, and it's a security tool. It's like a hacker in a box, so a black hat hacker, kind of people that are trying to take down websites. And they had this great product. The company was a really interesting collection of people because they had a bunch of black hat hackers there that really kind of only came out after dark. So really fun company to work in and work with all these people. And so we thought we had a product. So we hired Ed, the amazing enterprise sales guy. And we said, Ed, here's the product, and I was the marketing VP, so I made him his PowerPoint slides and his demos and his data sheets and everything he needed to go sell this. And we sent Ed off to Wall Street, where he had a bunch of contacts, because that's what sales guys are really good at. They have Rolodexes full of contacts. So Ed sets up meetings at Goldman Sachs and whatnot, and goes out there and gives this demo of this product, and it didn't work. So it was horrible. It was really embarrassing. But Goldman Sachs said, well, that's too bad. We really need this product now that you've kind of created this vision for us. So go back and finish the product and come back when it's ready. Well, it took another 9 months before that company had a product. So in the meantime, poor Ed really didn't have anything to do because he couldn't go out and sell a product that wasn't ready. And if he did, he was just likely to have issues and the same kinds of issues. And so it ended up costing the company probably close to $250,000 of their venture funding, of their hard-earned money, or hard not earned yet money, because they hired him too early and they weren't honest with themselves about how ready their product was to come to market. So the whole timing of this is really important. I say develop market while you're developing product. The timing is the hard part, and the timing is what you have to get right. So let's dive into number one, starting to sell too late. So where marketers and entrepreneurs go wrong is they're like, okay, I got my vision, I have a little bit of funding, or I'm ready to go, I'm going to go off, I'm going to build my vision. So what's wrong with that? It's your vision, not necessarily the customer's, okay? What else? You're going to build a vision. What's wrong with that? It's a dream. You haven't necessarily thought about the metrics or definition of success. What else? You got bills to pay. So the main things that happen that go wrong at this stage are you build too much, you build the wrong stuff, and you deliver too late. So my last company, we put way too much functionality in there, and I came on board and spent the next 2 years taking stuff out. It's like you've overcomplicated it. It's overcomplicated. Take it out, keep it simple. And it wasn't like customers didn't ask for those things, but it's a judgment call to say, no, they don't really need that. So what you have to get right is, who knows what I'm going to say here? Who's read the Lean Startup? So what do you need to get right? MVP? Figure out what is your minimum viable product, right? So you're figuring out, who are those, who are my initial customers? Who am I betting on that I'm going to build my company based on, and what exactly is their problem or opportunity? And what is the minimum set of functionality that they need? And I know you had a whole session on MVP, so a bunch of you, maybe you're the MVP teacher. So that's kind of an obvious one. The other things you have to get right is you have to learn how to sell it. And you have to figure out who your early customer partners are going to be. So here's kind of, again, for the visual learners. You're going along with your product development cycle. You're moving up, and you go, okay, we built this thing, sales, marketing, go sell it. And this is what happened. It's production ready, go get some paying customers. Well, you haven't done the legwork to figure out who those paying customers should be. You haven't built the relationships. You haven't proved that you comprehend, you're competent, and you care. So you throw the product over the wall to sales and marketing, and there are no paying customers. And what that means is you probably just lost potentially a round of funding if you're a venture-backed company, and at least 6 to 18 more months where you have to go back, start over, do your research, figure out who those initial partners and those initial customers are going to be. So how do you do that? It's really not rocket science. So if you're selling into businesses, you should be meeting with at least 30 prospective customers over a period of 3 months while you're developing the product. So this is what's going on in that lowest blue bubble on the right. If it's a consumer product or small business product like ours, we met with over 100. So and we had a very systematic form of information that we're collecting and different ways of really hearing what customers were saying. And you're listening, learning, and refining your product ideas, your business ideas, your messaging, your selling strategies. And it's not just about the product. You can see the red and the green questions I've got on this slide. It's, what else are their priorities? Where does this fall on the customer's priority list? Where's their greatest pain? One of my favorite questions is, please tell me all the reasons you would not buy this, all the reasons you would not do this, use this. Because Customers will tell you, right? And that's what you want to know. You want them to tell you all the reasons they will not do it so that you can address those things. You want to figure out the competition. Your best source of competitive information is not reading their websites. It is what your customers, your potential customers tell you the other guys are saying, because don't make the mistake of selling your futures with someone else's present. Everyone has futures. Everyone has a vision they're talking about. You need to know what that is for your competition. This is the best way to find it, by being out there. In design thinking, they say, get out of the building. Get out of the building, get out there and talk to your customers and learn what you can about the market. Learn how they make buying decisions. Who has the budgets? How are they organized? Who makes decisions and who's an influencer? And you, as the founders and executives of your startup, are the ones that need to know this. You can't delegate this to somebody else that you hire, okay? This is truly strategic and core to your business. So let's talk about mistake number 2. Mistake number 2 is overemphasizing the product. Where entrepreneurs go wrong is, back to my earlier slide, what do customers care about? Themselves, right? What do entrepreneurs care about? Oftentimes their product. So you got to get over that, right? Go out there and understand, who are the customers. Don't miss out on the opportunity to build the relationship to show that you comprehend. If you do go out there and start talking about your product and what you're doing, you miss out on the relationship. That will result in delays in market development. So what you have to do right is build your credibility before you build the product, build those relationships, demonstrate to these customers that you understand that you can remove the pain. So how do you do that? You do that by selling your assets. Back to my field of dreams slide. You need to sell the player. So the player, probably you, is someone who can be marketed in lieu of a product. And the characteristics of the player are these, that they know the game inside out. So a great example of this, I'll let you read the slide. A great example of this is a company I worked in called Valdero. It's a supply chain management software company. And the CEO was a guy named Singh Mecker. And Singh was previously a consultant for Deloitte Touche, and he made $600 an hour consulting on supply chain. He was a supply chain guru. So clearly an expert. He knew the game inside out. He had very respected knowledge and skills. He was a pretty good listener, although I did have to kick him under the table to get him to stop talking every now and then, because consultants like to talk. He was good at building rapport with the customers. He was able to translate, come back to the office and say, the customer said this, here's our priorities. And last but not least, he was a great guy. He was a magnet for other players. So if you're not that person, you need to have that person in your startup, because that person and you can go out and do this kind of market research that I'm talking about, this really hands-on. And that person, the player's expertise, has more value and less risk to your first customers than any product, right? Because people are going to trust that person and you to deliver on what you're committing to them. Okay, so mistake number 3. How many of you have worked in a big company and brought new products to market? Anybody? Okay, a bunch of you. So I started out my career at Sun Microsystems. I was a product manager there, best job ever out of school. And I learned a lot working at Sun. I introduced 17 products to market in 3 years. So I was a product launch machine. And we had a certain process that we went through to bring products to market. And so when I started doing entrepreneurial things and startups, I was like, well, this is how we do beta testing. And then I kind of had a bit of a disaster. So what was wrong with implementing the same process in a startup as we did at Sun Microsystems was that we didn't really care who the customers were. We were just looking for feedback on the product. We wanted them to find bugs and help us prioritize features and things like that. We weren't really focused on them being reference accounts or anything. So that's how things, that was fine for Sun Microsystems. It's not fine for a startup. What you have to get right in a startup is those first customers that are your partners, your beta testing partners, or your early testing partners, have to be in the right market, because basically you're going to build on their references, so you want to be in the right place, the right big opportunity market, and they have to buy, because if they don't buy it, and they don't become a reference customer for you, so you've just wasted a whole bunch of time developing that relationship. Does that make sense? So the beta testing product in a big company is something like this, for those of you who haven't done this, where a product manager will identify someone that's going to help them test a product and bring it to market. The customers give you some feedback. The product managers decide, are we going to put it in, or are we not going to put it in? Now, later, where does it go on the roadmap? The developers say, all right, they build it or they don't. It doesn't make the schedule. We used to work with the rest of customers of the company, so we train customer service, the writers, the rest of the marketing people, the PR department, all that stuff, get all those ducks in a row. And then you finish the product, you launch the product, product's in market, you're done. You move on to the next one, right? So that's how it's done, more or less, in big companies. And the difference is that a big company already has a market, a reputation, and existing customer relationships. By definition, startups don't, right? So what that means is these first customers that you're working with, your early product testing process, is the first time that your vision is being tested by the true judge, which is potential customers, right? So it needs to pass. It needs to lead to additional sales, and those additional sales need to be in the right market. So, or else you go back to ground zero in market development. So start back over again. So your Tango, there's a couple different things that go wrong here. One is this one, where you're building your product, going through the normal steps, but you did not strategically choose who your first customers were going to be. Some buy, some don't, and you end up in a really small market. So you haven't built the references in the place that you want to be long term. Another one is kind of the slide I put up, the first slide, where the customers don't buy, and then you got to start all over again building your credibility and the relationships with customers. So being strategic means choosing the right customers and partners in your early markets and making them great references for you. So what do you think, based on that, based on what I've just said and what you know, what is a wrong customer? They're in the wrong market, yeah. So someone that's not in a market that is big enough for you ultimately. What else? They don't really need it, yeah. So, I mean, the email server company, we got all this great feedback from email admins, but when we got to the CFO to ask for a check, it didn't happen. So we're back to ground zero. We didn't learn how to sell in that process, right? So they don't really need it. What else? Yeah. Perfect. They're not willing to be references. So Intel Corporation, that you've probably all heard of, in Silicon Valley has a reputation for, they're great at providing feedback, but they have a company policy not to provide references. So all the startups I worked with, I said, don't go there, because it's kind of a lost use of resources, because they can't talk to the press, they can't talk to other customers, there's a corporate policy against it. So they weren't good early adopter customers. Anything else? Okay, so basically a wrong customer is in the wrong market, so not where you want to be long term. Their priorities aren't mainstream, so they're taking you down some path that's unique to them, and they have no intention of buying and being referenceable. So bottom line is a wrong customer is one that's not referenceable for you in the right market as you're building it. So those early product testing partners that you have, Establish your customer relationships, your reputation, and your market, whether you like it or not. So be thoughtful about it. The early product testing process has 3 really important goals in a startup as you're getting established. The obvious, which is feedback to your product development organization. It works, it doesn't work, it has these bugs, whatever. The strategic, which is make sure we're going to be in the right place, ultimately, that top bubble. And the tactical, which is make sure that they're a die-hard, loyal base of fans. So keep those 3 things in mind as you're doing your research, as you're out there talking to your 30 or your 300 potential customers. That's what you're looking for, those 3 things. So my marketing career has mostly been in this kind of stuff that we're talking about, the product side and strategy and where we're going to go and what the product needs to be and what's the MVP. There's a whole other side of marketing about, okay, we figured all that out, now we got to launch. So there's a mistake that often gets made on this side of marketing as well, which I call the launch fizzle. And where entrepreneurs go wrong is that they think the launch is all about some event, all about, we got to have this, cocktail party or trade show or some sort of event that we're going to have that's going to get us all this press and we'll be launched and it'll be great, right? So what's wrong with that, what often goes wrong is they launch too early. If you launch too early, you don't get the press coverage you were hoping to get. You don't build the momentum and the hype you're expecting to build, and you miss out on the opportunity. You only get to launch once. So the launch itself is a many-month process. So where on this chart, on the blue side, do you think, if you're going to put a big yellow star on there that says, this is where we're going to launch, where do you think that would be? I don't have a, would it be here? 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 Raise your hand if you think here. Okay? A few. Raise your hand if you think references. Okay? Raise your hand if you think the top bubble. Okay? So, pretty even. It's right here. Right? So, what you need to have when you launch your product are paying referenceable customers, because the press really doesn't care unless you've done already a really successful startup yourself and you have a big name. You're kind of nobody where the press is concerned. The press doesn't believe you. They don't trust you. That's not their job. They want proof. So they want to talk to your customers. And if they can talk to a customer that says, this saved me, $3 million, that's great. You're going to get a great article. It's going to have a headline that says, Startup X saved big company X $3 million, or Startup Y got 3 million paying consumers to use their product, or think, what is that headline you want to be at your launch? Work back from that, right? Work back from the headline and put all your ducks in a row to deliver that headline. And it looks something like this. So this is just a suggestion for what the launch process is. If you say we're working back from our press meetings and the articles that show up, you have to make sure you have all the launch materials, you have referenceable customers, you have your sales force in place that's ready to take orders or sell as soon as the word gets out and leads come in. You have figured out your customer acquisition strategy and how that's going to work. You have your website built, your app built, all that stuff needs to lead up to this launch. So it's not about just build product, develop market, far to the left. All these other steps need to be in place before you're ready to do your launch. So, few key takeaways, and I'm happy to take some questions as well, because I'm sure there's a lot of different interpretations of this material, and I've been going pretty quickly. So, bottom line is, don't wait for the product to be available before you go out and learn about your customers, sales process, partnerships, competition, all the things you're going to have to deal with as to build a successful company. And remember, it's about the customer, and customers care about themselves. It's not about you, it's not about the product. And as soon as you put yourself in the customer's shoes, it becomes a lot easier to develop those relationships that you need to have the credibility that you need to get your first customers on board. And your player, anyway, your people have a lot more credibility than a product that's just now coming to life. So you need to build those relationships, build the credibility with those potential partners, figure out for this market that we're going to start with, what's the MVP, what's the minimum development work I can do to get a product in the hands of my customers that's going to solve their problem, that's going to deliver the value that these customers expect, and then make sure that those are referenceable customers. So that's kind of my 4 key takeaways. And bottom line is it takes 2 to tango. So you got to be doing this while the hackers are off there developing the actual product. So I have one final comment, and then I'm happy to take some questions until we have still 2 or 3 more minutes. So my final comment is this. This is a New Yorker comic that I found that really seems to fit this concept and this topic. And a little bit about me. When I was a kid, I grew up in a house that was pretty obsessed with sales. My dad was a salesman, and so he sold big industrial complex machinery stuff. And he would come home and he would say, I got a sale today. And it basically meant that some customer nodded his head and said, yes, we're going to buy this. And at the dinner table, so the family celebrated. Okay, and then the next week he would come home and say, I got a sale today, and it would be that maybe he got the PO from that customer that the week before nodded his head and said, yes, we're going to buy this. And so the family celebrated. And then the next week the product shipped, and he'd say, I got a sale today. And so we celebrate the product shipped, and then the next week a check would roll in and we'd celebrate again. So I basically grew up in a house that was very motivated by sales. And it was all about having successful customers that loved what you do, that find value in what you do, never selling snake oil, always solving real problems, realizing real opportunities for customers. And so I've managed to be able to kind of continue to live that in my entrepreneurial career and bring those lessons to students from all over the world. What it means is basically this. I'm a pragmatist. Before I put a new product on the market, make sure that someone wants to buy it. So that is my stories for you. I'm happy to answer questions if you've got questions, or if you want to figure out how to apply this to your business, if it might be a service business or a green tech business or medical. You have a question?
If we already found that the client wants it, but we need to do so much more development in order for the key partner to actually take it.
Okay, so the question is, once we find someone that wants to buy this thing, we've created our MVP, they want to buy it, they want to use it, how do we develop the relationships with others, like the channels that will lead to long-term scalability?
They might not be able to take the MVP as a product. They might want that to fit.
I really wouldn't worry about that so much, right? What you want to do, is figure out, is this the right customer that I can scale? There's a lot more that look like them, and if this MVP meets their needs, there's another 100 customers out there that like it, or a million customers out there that like it. And then make them really happy and make sure that they are raving fans. And when you start building it, and you're probably going to do that direct, right? That's the player. That's not going to go through channels. Once you start developing some of those diehard fans, then you've got evidence that can go to channels. Channels don't do anything that you can't do yourself, right? In fact, they can't do what you do. You care a lot more than they do. They've got relationships, but what you're going to do is really hard. It's hard to get those first customers. And channels are used to take product A, sell to customer B. It has to be pretty smooth, right? So you're going to work with all your first customers yourselves, You're going to figure out what's the repeatable sales process for that. When you figure out your repeatable sales process, that's when you'd worry about partners and channels and bringing them in to do that. More questions? Everybody a little shy? Okay, I only have 33 seconds anyway. Is there one back there?
Hi. So I could really relate with what you were talking about with respect to going from consulting to product development. What are maybe some tips that you could provide, or maybe some frameworks of, how to set up your time or how to structure product development in a situation like that?
So I think the stronger you can draw the lines, the better. So maybe you can draw boundaries at people and say, if we're a 10-person organization, we're going to take these 5 and they're consultants. We're going to take these 5 and they're product developers. So the harder you can draw that boundary, the better, because it's really easy to get sucked into a consulting project. And if the customer's not happy and you got to make them happy, you're very likely to do whatever it takes to make them happy and sacrifice your product business. So you have to be pretty manic. You might even want to locate them separately in separate facilities or have them work off-site or something like that. Create a skunkworks project, but firewall it off from the consulting work. That's what I have seen primarily work. Okay? All right. Anything else? I'll be around this afternoon, and this evening, so I would love to talk to you one-on-one and hear about the things you're doing. It's super exciting for me to hear how you guys are thinking about things and changing the world here in Puerto Rico. So come see me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Donna. Un fuerte aplauso.